Hi everyone, I hope you are doing good. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Since artificial intelligence is the talk of the town and everybody these days is interested in artificial intelligence, in this video I'm going to use GitHub Copilot to create a website without writing code. So let's see how fast we can do that, and I hope we will learn along how to use GitHub efficiently. Now GitHub, they say, is a AI pair programmer. I personally think it as a advanced intelligent autocomplete tool. So it's not going to create everything for you, but it's going to help you along the way while you're writing the code. Now, as a prerequisite, if you want to follow along, unfortunately, since GitHub Copilot is paid, you would need to either buy a subscription or you would just have to basically watch the video, and later on when you have the subscription you can try it out. I would be using VS Code IDE for this video's demo, and we need GitHub plugins installed in VS Code in advance. Other than that, I will add a link to GitHub documentation for Copilot, where they have good documentation on getting started with GitHub Copilot for different IDEs. Since I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I followed the documentation for Visual Studio Code. You can follow for any of the other IDs if you're using them. So I already have VS Code Studio installed on my machine, and I also have GitHub Copilot plugins installed. So this is my folder that I have created on my machine for this video's demo. Let me open VS Code here. Now the very first thing you would notice, if I go to plugins here and type GitHub Copilot, so you would notice that I already have GitHub Copilot plugin installed, and also if we want, we can also install GitHub Copilot Chat if you're going to use the chat functionality of GitHub Copilot. Now, once you have set up the GitHub Copilot plugin and you have logged into GitHub as per the documentation that I talked about earlier, in the bottom right hand corner you would see a GitHub Copilot icon appearing. If you click on it, you should have a status ready symbol here. So that means in my case, my GitHub Copilot is connected to GitHub servers and it is authenticated and ready to send out the suggestions for me. Now, in this video's demo, we are going to create a demo website using HTML, JavaScript and CSS. For the case of CSS, I thought let's use Bootstrap, and I will try to make sure that we don't need advanced knowledge of Bootstrap, HTML or CSS while writing code for this website. So let's just create a index.html for our website. This would be our main page that would be running the website. Now let's go to getbootstrap.com, and in this website they have a link for quick start. So I'll just go to click on that quick start option. Here they have mentioned that if you create an index.html file, let's just copy this code and paste it in our file. So this is Bootstrap demo hello world. If I now try to open this in a browser, so you can see it's just plain text hello world. Now what they're saying is if you want to include Bootstrap CSS and JS libraries in this file using a link, that is, we won't have to download the files locally to the server, we would be directly using it as a link. You can just simply copy this HTML documentation from here and I'll paste it here. Now if I reload the index.html page, I see hello world little different, which is because now we have CSS. So now let's do one thing. Let's change the title for our website. Let's say I love dogs. So let's say this is the title of our website. I'll remove the body for now. Now we want to create a website for showing up random dog pics. So we will be using an external free API to get the random dog pics, and we will load them in our website. So let's just start writing the body of our website. So as soon as I type body and press enter, you can see that GitHub Copilot has already created a suggestion. So if you see, I have got two suggestions, one of two, so I can just toggle between that. So they have created the second suggestion is a little bit bigger, and the first suggestion was a little bit smaller. At this point, GitHub really doesn't know what I'm trying to do. It's basically just assuming, since my site title is I love dogs, I would be creating a container based on Bootstrap, since I'm also including link to the Bootstrap for my body. So I'm not going to accept that suggestion, so I'll just press the escape button for now. Now let's just type the documentation here. So what I'm going to say here is Bootstrap transparent navigation bar, and let's just press enter here. And now if you see here, Copilot has already has given me a suggestion, so I'll just accept it as is. And this says, so this is my navigation bar using a Bootstrap class. Let's just save it here for now. Let's not go ahead, and let's see what our page looks like. So if you see here, the page looks like this now. So we have a navigation bar which says I love dogs, and it has also created a button for me, but we don't need button for now. So let me just remove this button, and I'm now going to basically close the div, close the navigation header, and that's it. So the one section is complete. That's basically the navigation bar. Okay, so that's the navigation part I have closed now. So now let's create a container which would be storing our images. So what would I say is Bootstrap container with light background. Now let's see what Copilot gives. So now Copilot has created a light background colored container div for me, which has one row and heading, and then we have a class for text. So let's reload this. So now I've got I love dogs, and we have I love dogs class. So now I'm thinking about it, we don't even need this header. So what we can do is we can just simply remove this because I don't need it, and I think the container with light background is sufficient. And I have a typo here, so let me just fix this. Now we have a header I love dogs, that's fine. And now in the class we have paragraph for class text center equal to dogs dog pic. So we'll say id dog pic, so that we can uniquely identify this paragraph later on, so that we can insert the images here. Now let's create a file called script.js. So that's our JavaScript. And now let's include this script in our HTML file. So we say include script.js library. And now as soon as I typed that, Copilot automatically gave me a suggestion that okay, script source script.js, and that's it. So basically GitHub Copilot was intelligent enough to understand that I want to include a source for script.js. Now let's go to the script.js, and let's create on Windows load. So what should happen on the Windows load? So GitHub Copilot has already given me a suggestion that Windows on load we want to create a function, which is correct. So let's just create a function. So now let's get the element with with ID. So what was the ID for our of our paragraph? It was dog pics. So we'll say get the element with ID and save it to a variable, because now what we want to do is, with the help of JavaScript, we want to get random dog pics, so that on the window load we get that we can show that dog pic in the image. So now if you see here, we have got a variable called dogpics document.getLoadById, and it has created the code for us. Now we have stored the document element in dogpics variable. So let's just add make get call to dogpics API. So now we have a variable called request, which is of type XML HTTP request. This is required to make the call, get or post call to an API. And now if you see here, and now we really don't want to use that API, let's just replace it with the API that we want to use. Now the next function would be on load of the request. So what should happen when the request is loaded, or when the response comes back, right? So now we have a request. If we want to open it, it will make a get call to this UI. But what should happen once we get the request? So we need a function for that. So GitHub Copilot is suggesting that you create an onload of the request function. So we will accept it. And now what it is saying is get the response from the request and save it to a variable. So it's saving it to the data variable, whatever the response would be sent by the API. Then create a new image element. So it's creating a new image element using the document.createElement and the image, the element name. And now what it is doing is it is setting the source of that image to the response body data.message. Reason is because it knows. Now if I go to the command prompt, if I make a curl call to that API, so if I say curl -x get, and then in that API URL that we are going to use. So if you see here, it has two components. So it's returning a JSON object and which has two keys. One is the message, which has your image URL for the dog picture, and the status, which is successful in our case. So what we are doing here is we are setting the image elements source as data.message, which is the message returned by the API if the call is successful. And then what we are doing is then we are basically appending that new element to our parent element, which was docpics. So this is the onload function that has been created. Now let's see what Copilot is suggesting. So we have created the request.open, we have request.onload, and now let's make the actual request. So what it is suggesting is now we need to write the code to make the actual request, which is just simply request.send, and that's it. Let's just save it. Now if I load this page, you can see right now I'm basically getting random dog pictures from that API, although I do see an additional I love dogs. So what would I do is, let me go back here and I'll just delete this here, and if I reload now, if I reload, the pictures are coming up perfectly fine. So this is when we are loading the HTML page directly. Now this is a very simple page that we created, a small website where we are basically getting the random dog pictures from an external free API. What if we wanted to basically run it as a server? So what we would do is, in this video we would be running it in container. Now let's create a Docker file to containerize this application. So let's me create it. So I'm calling it Docker file, and let me add a comment. So we'll say Docker file to run HTML application. As soon as I do that, then I need a from statement. So Copilot is automatically suggesting me to use Nginx Alpine image as the base image. So let's just use that. And now what it is suggesting is that I need to copy my HTML content to user share Nginx HTML directory, which is the directory from root directory or htdoc directory for Nginx image. So what I'll do is I'll just say, let's just copy the index.html file to that location. And now let's also just copy the script dot, we don't have style.css, we have script.javascript file that we want to copy again to the htdoc or document root for the application. And that's it. So this is our Docker file, which was created with the help of Copilot for us. Now what we will do is we will go to this directory. It was under ctemp cop. If I do ls-ltr here, we have the Docker file which we created using VS Code, which has only 3 lines, right? Now in my case I have Podman installed, so I'm going to use Podman to build the Docker image. So what I'm going to do is run podman build dot. If I type this, it's basically downloading the base image. In my case the base image is already there, so it didn't download. It's copying the index.html file to the respective directory on the image, and now we have the final Docker image created for us. As simple as that. Now we have the Docker image. We want to run it to test our application to see if it runs using Nginx web server. So what we are going to do is again run podman run -p, because we are going to expose the port on port 80 on 80 on our local machine, and we want to run it in an interactive mode. And then we have the image ID followed by the command bash. Oh, so it doesn't have the bash, so let's just run it like this, because I was thinking maybe we'll log into the container, but looks like bash is not installed in the base image, so that's fine. We can just run it without bash. So this is basically executing the entry point for us, whatever is in the base image, and essentially it is going to start the Nginx server for us. Now if I go back here and load my localhost page, so now you can see that my website is running here. It says I love dogs, and now we have puppies showing up here. These images are coming from that API which we had added in our JavaScript. So every time we are reloading, the onload function is getting executed, and we have random dog pics getting showed up here. So this way, I hope you now got some idea about how useful GitHub Copilot or similar kind of tools could be. I wouldn't say these would be creating software or applications for you from scratch, They can assist you. Essentially, you would need to know or understand what you want to create, but definitely they'll help you do stuff which is more important for you rather than focusing on manually writing codes where it is unnecessary. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.